Spiritual food for thought.
When my wife and I wanted to get married, neither of us would be what I consider to be believers. But we walked into a church to get married, and we began a walk with the Lord at that point. That has continued to this day. That would have been back in about 2007. Now around 2014, 2015, when we were about 7 years in, was a very interesting turning point. There's been a lot of growth and a lot of, leaving the old life behind, walking in a new life, applying His Word to our life, trusting in Him, having faith in Him. But around 2014, 2015, there was a lot of things that happened that became quite a transitional point in our life and in our walk. I remember specifically in 2015, I began to meditate on the law of the Lord. It was very interesting. Probably the initial idea, I'm guessing at this point, must have come from Psalm 1. Psalm 1, Psalm 2, Psalm 3, Psalm 4 was something that we were having our children memorize. So by the time our second daughter turned 3, she had the first couple Psalms memorized in this tiny little girl voice. It was precious to hear. But in Psalm 1, which I would have heard frequently at that time, with the amount of repetition we were getting in our home, the amount of my children, reciting this and us reading through it. Psalm 1 verse 2 says, "But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night." Well, who is this he we're speaking of? Back up a verse to the opening of Psalm 1, opening of the book of Psalms. "Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful." So this blessed man doesn't walk in the counsel of the ungodly. He doesn't stand in the way of sinners. He doesn't sit in the seat of the scornful. And potentially, the reason why is because, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. So I thought, you know what? This sounds good to me. I would like to be that blessed man. I know that many of these things were going on in my life at the time. Here's where it kind of mentions really just meditating in his law day and night. And I began to do that. But, if you really think about the law of God, there's a lot there. So I thought I would start off what I thought was simple. I thought I would start off easy. And when I began to meditate on the law of the Lord, I focused only on the 10 Commandments at that point. And what I would do is I would read through the 10 Commandments as written, which is interesting. We'll get to that. And then I would meditate and contemplate and roll this stuff over my head. And the interesting thing is whether you're looking in Deuteronomy or in Exodus, you have verses that pertain to commandments that are very small. You have just a couple words being given to things like murder, like stealing, like adultery. And then out of nowhere, you've got, boom, 4 verses in Deuteronomy, 4 verses in Exodus being given to the Sabbath. And just by number of words, just by amount of text, just by what was provided there, I thought, you know what? There seems to be a very large emphasis being put on this particular commandment. Now, that particular commandment was one that I was not applying in my life. I know that we like to think we are a lot of times, and we'll say, oh, well, I do the Christian Sabbath, I do Sunday. But everything written there was pretty much nothing that we were doing, by and large. Now, I understand, looking back in American history, there was times when no stores were open on Sunday. There was times when nobody was allowed to work on Sundays in certain areas, certain families, certain communities. So they were actually trying to apply some of this to the first day of the week. They absolutely were. But I think that we had already taken a step away, where now it was the first day and not the last day. Now it wasn't the seventh day, it wasn't the Shabbat. And once you start kind of distancing, it's easier just to go a little more distance, which is where I believe we find most of the Christian church these days, who would be making an appeal, a claim to a Sunday Sabbath. It's not really a Sabbath at all. Pertaining to not working, it's a lot of times their day to mow the lawn. It's their day to do different labor. It's their day to go out to brunch or lunch after the service. It's not what we see commanded here. And I just began having thoughts. At that point, I began having thoughts, and I began bringing up to people in our fellowship, Christian brothers and sisters, the potential validity of this. For the most part, it was by and large dismissed, but it was there in my mind. And I continued just to simply meditate on this law, to realize the significance that I hadn't seen before, to realize an emphasis that I hadn't seen before. And that led me to one of my next revelations, which I'll cover in the next video. Be blessed.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.